Norway, a land of breathtaking beauty, rugged coastlines, and a population of just over 5 million. A land of thunder gods, fierce warriors, and endless horizons. However, before oil riches and world-class cities, Norway carved its name into history with something far older. Norway is steeped in legend and saga. The Norse are a people born from the rolling icy seas, people who defended the land they worked to survive. It is a land of epic saga, larger-than-life gods, goddesses, and mythological places who have lived on into modern-day infamy. The Norse history gave us Thor, Loki, Asgard, and Valhalla, names that evoke images of strength, code, and honor. Yet this small nation controls the world's largest sovereign wealth fund, valued at nearly $2 trillion. How did they amass this fortune? In this video, we will lay out the history of Norway's struggle as a nation and how it found its way to becoming a model of financial strategy admired throughout the modern world. The Vikings, Norse ancestry, they were adventurers and explorers, warriors and conquerors, but also farmers, people of the land. From the 8th to the 11th century, Norwegians set sail, not just as raiders, but as traders, explorers, and settlers. They reached Iceland, Greenland, even the shores of North America, and they accomplished this 500 years before Columbus. The Viking Age was much more than simply blood and conquest. They were a culture of code where every man counted. They were a culture of craft, taking pride in their man-made weapons, their tools of farming, and they were a culture of honor. The Norwegians were more than just seafarers. Long before Viking raids, the Norse were people of the land, farmers, crop growers, cattle and sheep herders. In narrow valleys between the mountains, they farmed the earth, fished the rivers, and survived brutal winters. Agriculture shaped the cycles and rhythms of their lifestyle, which was always rooted in community, resilience, and a deep respect for nature. These same principles have been preserved and carried into their modern world. Today, Norway isn't just rich, it's one of the wealthiest countries in the world per capita. But what's truly fascinating is how it got there. Because Norway didn't just strike oil, it struck wisdom. Modern history and online searches outline the 100-year journey that turned a modest Scandinavian country into an economic supermodel. But Norway's history reaches much further back, and the roots of its people's outlook on life weaved its way through the fabric of this Scandinavian country's current approach to wealth, community, and social well-being. 100 years ago, Norway was one of the poorest nations in Europe. Life was hard. Its people scraped by on agriculture, timber, fishing, and small-scale trade. Rural poverty and emigration were common. However, that began to change. Between 1850 and 1920, over 800,000 Norwegians left for better lives abroad, nearly a third of the population at the time. Norway was beautiful, but unforgiving. Most people lived in rural areas, farming tiny plots of rocky land. The population was growing fast, but farmland wasn't. Poverty, limited opportunity, and harsh winters made survival difficult. Children, typically the sons, inherited nothing from their parents. The life they lived as farmers offered no promise for the future. Eventually, the dream of a better life somewhere became irresistible as their current lives seemed unsustainable. Yet even then, the seeds of something special were growing within Norway, both amongst the citizens who remained and those who left. A strong democratic governance, an egalitarian spirit wherein people believed in equality and sharing resources, and a cautious economic culture driven by the consensus of the people. Equality was at the root of Norway's spirit, stemming from their roots in farming, Viking culture, and honor. Electricity from hydropower began transforming industry by mid-century. After World War II, Norway funded rapid reconstruction, modernizing roads, dams, shipyards, and other infrastructure. But Norway had a way of operating as a nation that set it apart from other countries. Unlike much of Europe, Norway never had a large class of ruling nobles or land barons. Instead, most Norwegians were freeholding farmers, owning and working their own land. They depended on cooperation, working to help each other. Without any sense of hierarchy, neighbors helped neighbors. Communities worked together. To share was the norm, not the exception. Decisions were made at the local level, often by consensus. This applied to government decisions as well. Naturally, the state took an active role in steering the economy for the benefit of its citizens, prioritizing public education and welfare, and setting themselves up to best handle the success that was yet to come. Oil. By 1966, Norway asserted rights over the continental shelf in the North Sea. Initial exploration proved less than hopeful, but by 1969, Norway had established global economic clout. Then came 1969. Off the coast of Stavanger, deep in the North Sea, Phillips Petroleum struck black gold, Norway's first major oil discovery, the Ekofisk field. Yet this rich discovery introduced major problems. Norway now faced a fateful question that they had to answer to. Would this oil make the country rich or curse it with the so-called resource curse that plagued other nations like Venezuela and Nigeria? More importantly, would this sudden new wealth destroy their egalitarian system? Unlike other nations, Norway chose to manage its newfound wealth cautiously, aiming to benefit both current and future generations. It didn't rush to spend. Instead, it chose to save. While this decision may seem frugal and cautious, the government's thinking was rooted in the same principles of its ancestors: Viking honor, neighbor helping neighbor, working for the greater good. While oil boomed offshore, the nation refined onshore strengths. Hydropower and heavy industry like aluminum formed a dual economic core. While they benefited from their own oil discovery, they invested heavily in other natural resources. Since the early 1900s, the Norwegian government, amidst harsh political battle, moved to invest in hydropower, harnessing the natural energy of water to produce massive electricity storage. As a result, the discovery of oil was an additional boon to an already growing, nationally owned energy source. In 1990, the government passed a bold and innovative law. All surplus oil revenues would go into a national savings account, the Government Petroleum Fund, commonly known as the Oil Fund. The idea? To save for future generations, to protect against oil price volatility, and to insulate the economy from boom-bust cycles. Norges Bank Investment Management, where the government pension fund or oil fund is managed. Managed by Norges Bank Investment Management, the fund didn't just sit on cash. It invested globally in stocks, bonds, real estate, and infrastructure. Today, it owns around 1.5% of all listed companies in the world, from Apple and Microsoft to Nestle and Toyota. And their investment strategy is not just smart, it's ethical. Norway's fund has a strict ethical investment mandate. It won't invest in tobacco, weapons, or companies that violate human rights. It's capitalism with a conscience backed by long-term thinking. Transparency and education are key. From an early age, Norwegian children are informed about how the fund operates and its role in society. More importantly, students learn to understand how their country's economic policy benefits them, their families, and their society. By investing in its own infrastructure, Norway boasts one of the most efficient public transportation systems in all of Europe, utilizing every resource at its disposal. Despite having the world's largest sovereign wealth fund per capita, Norway doesn't splurge. According to their fiscal rule, the government can only use a small portion of oil revenues, just 3% annually, to support the national budget. The fiscal rule states clearly that only returns on their investments and not the principal can be used. This key economic rule helps grow Norway's financial wealth to this day. Moreover, public discourse ensures the fund reflects the nation's values and priorities. In this way, Norway preserves its early principles of governing by consensus to maintain an egalitarian society. And it works. 2008, the housing market bottoms out. The stock market crashes. Major global investment firms crash. The world is struck dumb with a new economic crisis. Despite global panic, Norway was sheltered from the storm. Their oil fund, carefully managed according to the fiscal rule, buffered Norway from the 2008 financial collapse and the COVID-19 pandemic, enabling Norway's leaders to continue to spend wisely without going into debt. The oil fund's true purpose isn't just wealth, it's welfare. Education, healthcare, pensions, infrastructure all benefit from Norway's disciplined saving strategy. Today, Norway continues to invest in a post-oil future, rich in renewables, tech, and green infrastructure, and a philosophy that puts its citizens' quality of life over wealth. Most thinking would assume that spending to care for citizens would create debt for the country. Not so. From $0 to $2 trillion in 3 decades, it's a legacy of trust, strategy, and generational thinking. So no, Norway isn't rich because of oil. It's rich because it resisted the temptation to spend. Norwegians planned, saved, and invested. Over generations, it turned a temporary windfall into a lasting fortune. In a world of short-term thinking, Norway played the long game and won because they stuck to the same principles that worked for centuries, helping each other, working for the benefit of the whole, and not the needs of the individual. There is much the rest of the world can learn from the economic and egalitarian ethics that has made Norway one of the richest countries in the world.